Trump's going to drain the swamp. Pam Bondi's going to drain the swamp. Cash Patel, Dan Bongino, they're draining it.
Draining it.
I had a friend in college. His nickname was Dr. Drano because he just drained it.
Okay.
Dr. Drano.
Are they playing basketball? Because they're definitely not playing politics. Oh, maybe they are playing politics.
Well, here's my big synopsis. If the total Trump drain the swamp play, the biggest drain the swamp play he can run is release the Epstein files. I mean, that represents so much of draining the swamp.
Gabe, that's only if they exist.
Well,
There's
there's 250 victims.
Yeah.
The swamp might not exist.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to CrossPolitic Studio on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. Pastor Toby Chuck Knox. I'm the Water Boy, and it's Epstein File Day. Show.
Wednesday,
sure. All this
beer and Epstein files.
Beer and Epstein
Where's
files.
my beer?
Yes. All right, do you have some?
We do
Okay,
need
then
a
we
song.
don't have yeah.
We do need a song.
we do
I might need a beer, too.
We need a beer and a song for
America
today.
needs a beer or some bourbon. That's what we need right now.
And the Psalms.
I want to go over the timeline real quick of the Epstein stuff because I think it really puts things in context. We're good at putting things in context. We'd like to bring in past context to talk about what the crazy stuff's going on with the Epstein files now. So in 2005, Epstein was accused of bringing underage girls into his home for sexual acts. There's a 14-year-old involved. Her family instigated this. Police started investigation. 2008, Epstein cut a secret non-prosecution agreement with attorney Alex Acosta in Florida. And in that secret non-prosecution agreement, he pled guilty to 2 state-level charges, soliciting a minor, prosecution. He served 13 months in jail.
Prosecution or prostitution?
Prosecution, non-prosecution. He wasn't prosecuted for it,
right?
Number 2, he served 13 months in jail, mostly on work release, meaning you get up in the morning, you get your prison breakfast, and you get out of jail, go to work, and then you come home and go to bed. Like, what kind of penalty is that? Number 3. Immunity was granted to his co-conspirators. Okay, and then lastly, number 4, the victim was not even notified of this secret non-prosecution agreement.
Where's all this information coming from?
My producers researched it.
Okay.
But our producers put it
You
up
trust them?
Yeah, absolutly. Yeah.
You sure AI is not hallucinating? Because
I guess I was just curious about the victim wasn't aware of it. Claim. I'm just curious where that comes from, like how we know that.
We can bring Jack on and have him back it up. July 6, 2019. So this is where it picks up again.
Okay, so that was 2008. And then
10, 11 years later.
Okay.
He gets rearrested in New York for sex trafficking minors in New York and Florida, but that goes back to 2002 to 2005.
Yep.
So the same period, he got in trouble for this 14-year-old. In 2005 is when he got in trouble with this 14-year-old. Yeah, okay.
Same charge in New York or different?
I think it's a different charge because he got
we went through this before on the show. You asked that same question before.
Yeah. Isn't there like
yeah.
double jeopardy or something involved there?
Yeah.
And so July 6, 2019, rearrested in New York for sex trafficking minors in New York and Florida, but they're going back to 2002 to 2005, which is same period. The FBI raided his New York mansion, and they found hundreds of photos of child pornography, CDs labeled with girls' names on it, and documents showing travel and money paid to the victims, or some victims, whatever. And then a month later, August 10, 2019, he was suicided.
He was suicided.
So that's the track record,
right,
of Epstein. And then all of a sudden now we have, apparently there's no list anymore. There's really no file basically more on Epstein. That's what's coming out. Here's Pam Bondi. She got asked at a recent meeting with Trump in the room. This happened, I think, yesterday, 2 days ago, or something like that. Go ahead and roll the clip.
In February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention.
DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
There are well over, this will make you sick,
200 victims.
200.
200.
250.
So we have well over 250 actually. So we have to make sure that their identity is protected and their personal information. But other than that, I think tomorrow, the personal information of victims. Other than that, I think tomorrow, Jesse, breaking news right now, you're going to see some Epstein information being released. A lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information. But it's pretty sick what that man did. As I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK
That's
file
not questions you asked.
That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
So they tried to release the video of,
so if there's a consistent missing minute every night, going back some years,
everybody knows about it.
And everybody knows.
All you got to do is,
during that minute. What happened, they released the video, the prison video, the night he committed suicide, and they thought it was just going to, calm all the questions down, and the minute was missing from that video that they released, and that just drove everyone more nuts on it. There's a minute missing.
Right.
You could see the video. Bloop.
I don't understand what she meant when she said the video is conclusive, and she stopped and she says, well, not what is in the video is not definitive, but what happened right before the video is.
I don't quite understand.
What
I
does
think
that mean?
Here's the things I think she's referring to. One is, I think she remembered that the 1 minute thing was missing. She needed to explain that.
Right.
And I think the other thing is that the video didn't show in the prison cell. It just showed the door and everything. So it was just a video outside the door of the prison. It didn't show in the room.
So how is that conclusive?
Yeah. That's how I explained why she said the way she said.
Why is it definitive? I don't know. I'm just.
Yeah.
I mean.
I don't know.
Anyways, it is. That was not very particularly helpful answer.
But
I didn't think so.
Especially the way she went on months ago about how you're about to get it. The file's on my desk right now. You're about to get it.
Yeah.
The Epstein client list is on my desk.
Where's my desk? Where's my desk? What desk?
What desk?
It's all gone.
What I meant,
including my desk.
What I meant was there's a desk. That's what I meant.
It's got some files on
it.
Yeah.
From time to time, like JFK.
Yeah.
But you remember the report, the Fox guy specifically asked her, where's the list? And she said, it's on my desk.
Right.
She changed her answer to include, I was talking about the Epstein files. I was talking about the RFK files, the JFK files. I was talking about the files that I was going to review. So she shifted she didn't answer the question. She changed her answer really in front of Trump in that.
But they're saying now there's no list.
And now they're saying there's no list at all. But the reporter asked her specifically, where's the list? She says, it's on my desk.
No.
But now it's kind of Epstein itself, huh?
It's suicided, her list. So, but the same thing, remember Dan Bongino. So here's what, this whole update here is crazy because guys like Dan Bongino, they were special forces. They were hard-headed guys. He had his own independent news outlet.
Yeah.
He went crazy over this.
He's a guy over the years we've been able to trust. Like he's, for the most part,
he's been hard-headed. He's been very stubborn on requesting this narrative that I tend to fall in. Go ahead and roll this clip.
Listen, that Jeffrey Epstein story is a big deal. Please do not let that story go. Keep your eye on this. Catherine Rumler, we need to keep the heat on this case, folks. There are a lot of people who are knee deep in the Washington swamp who are not telling you the truth about serious allegations out there that Epstein may have had video and audio of people out there doing things they shouldn't have been doing. And you should be asking yourself the question, how is it that all these people, the CIA director, the Obama fixer, Bill Clinton, all intersected paths with Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein isn't with us anymore, and nobody seems to want to talk about it. Outside of a few entrepreneurial media outlets saying, hey, this is a big deal.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
What happened to, like, there's a portal or something in the White House, or when you get in, like some sort of hazing process where they do the whole Black Lives Matter thing, or not Black Lives Matter, but Men in Black thing where they zap you
flash.
and pew.
I wish we had more of that second clip. I'm just curious, like that press conference, like he
was sitting next to Cash Patel on that one.
He doesn't seem as healthy. I'm serious.
Would you feel so healthy if you got a red dot pointing in your head and heart?
That's like 10 seconds, so it's hard to catch. But I'm just like, he's just like
a little pale.
Yeah.
I don't
know if is that just the video? Is that just
and the way he's talking, it's not even like it's him to me. The way he's talking.
It's not what?
Not him.
Yeah,
it's not
him.
himself.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like he doesn't seem healthy. He seems
Yeah.
like, and I'm just like, I'm serious. Like
The weight of what he's dealing with is pretty heavy.
But also, you saw Pam Bondi with the Trump response. She was talking more, reserved to me. I mean, like, I feel like everyone's body language is.
I don't know. She seemed the same. I don't.
Really?
I don't.
Okay.
But I don't
Okay.
like.
She's handling orders, what's given to her.
Yeah,
That's what she feels.
Feels like
Yeah.
But why do you? I mean, how do you go from? I mean, Bondi's probably the most like, 180.
Yeah.
The files are on my desk.
Right.
Yeah, there's files on my desk. Lots
The
of
list.
files.
No, the list is on my desk.
Yeah. The list. Yeah, but I mean, it's like there's no list. But like,
Yep.
that's the most 180.
Yeah, I agree.
You don't think Dan's 180 either?
But he's like saying there's something serious here. There's something serious.
You're
here.
reading his body language.
Yeah. But I guess I'm just saying, like, that's a little bit more than like, I know, I've seen it, I've got it.
Right.
And we're going to release it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that Pam
Yeah,
Bondi
let's
said.
do it.
Like,
Yeah.
like tomorrow, there's going to be big news.
We're going to redact names and we're going to release it.
Yeah. And there's, there's going to be flights and there's going to be, all this,
Logs
we're going to take out the victims.
You're
but
going to get names.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot. It's big news. Like, why do
Yeah.
you make that kind of announcement? There's going to be big news. If she's an order taker,
Well, and
back to your point, she takes orders.
Here's the thing I don't understand is
They're all having a Geraldo
what are we
moment.
still not talking about either that happened to Trump?
No, the assassination.
Assassination.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So that's all. That's not being talked about. So
Okay.
Trump is like something's happening here where Trump's not addressing his own assassination attempts. Maybe it's not a big enough issue to address. Maybe he needs a.
It's really.
prosecute.
I don't think it'd be that. I don't think that's it.
It's really important though to remember why these are important things. So remember, part of what Trump ran on was these things, and Don Bongino was saying basically, why is this stuff important? Well, it's important because what we believe is going on in our government is there is a shadow operation happening that we don't have any control over, and we don't know who's operating, and things are happening
Deep state.
in the deep state
Right.
that are not stuff that we elected to happen. And so we wanted a president and leaders, not just president, but leaders who he selected beforehand. His roster, Trump's roster, is part of the reason that we
Dan
voted for him.
Bongino was a big deal.
And
Dan Bongino is a big part of that.
He was a big part of that.
Cash Patel.
Patel's a huge
Right.
part. Dan,
Yep.
yeah.
These
And
are key players in his administration.
This is why it matters, because we're saying, hey, Doge, that was a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Because we said they're spending, look, and we found out through Doge, and they didn't even get a chance to do all of their deep dives yet. Elon didn't get a chance to do all of his deep dives yet before he's out.
Right.
And so we're seeing a track record of whatever immune system the deep state has is pretty high.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
So Cash Patel, one of the others.
Yeah, we got him on here. But
This is what he said before he was elected, right? Or do you want to say something first?
No. I was just gonna add this. My buddy Chad Prather, he was at the White House when they originally handed out those binders, and he couldn't come on the show today. But he said this to me. He said, "There's nothing significant about the binder." He said they used
It was all old stuff.
that play. He said so that the mainstream media would run with it, and he said it was effective. He's like, "That's all it was."
Of course.
Just get the mainstream media to pick it up.
Of course.
Pick up just the
The
Epstein.
binder stuff.
Why?
I don't know. That'd be a follow-up question I'd love to ask
It's
Chad.
a
and all
juke
this, but-
move.
Yeah, and that's what they released the following day after she said we're going to release. They released
It was like later that
binders
week or something
or
like
later.
that.
Yeah,
It was a
it was-
huge. Remember that everybody on social media who was some sort of influencer or podcaster or somebody was supposedly come to the White
We were
House.
hoping we were going to get binders.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I don't even
yeah.
want to be close to that.
I know.
Don't promise
Well,
me nothing.
I think Jack was going to get a binder.
Yeah,
right?
somebody. I don't even want our name nowhere close to that one.
Okay, let's move on to Cash Patel. Did you want to read?
The tweet.
Yeah, go
So
ahead,
this is
bring
what
this up.
he tweets, February 27. The FBI is entering a new era, one that will be defined by integrity, accountability, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. There will be no cover-ups, no missing documents, no stone left unturned, and anyone from the prior or current bureau who undermines this will be swiftly pursued. If there are gaps, we will find them. If records have been hidden, we will uncover them, and we will bring everything we find to the DOJ to be fully assessed and transparently disseminated to the American people as it should be. The oath we take is to the Constitution, and under my leadership, that promise will be upheld without compromise. So that's why a lot of people voted for Trump.
So let's run the next clip.
You don't think that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list? And why is it that the Senate, and good for Senator Blackburn to try to get it out, but then Dick Durbin comes over the top and says, no, we're not going to release the names. I don't care about the list itself, but if release the names, right? What the hell are the House Republicans doing? They have the majority. You can't get the list? You're going to accept Dick Durbin's word or whoever that guy is as to who is on that list and who isn't, and that it can and can't be released?
Okay. So he's
railing against it.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Where's the list?
Yeah.
Why can't House Republicans?
Right.
They're in control.
Right.
Why can't they release the list? I mean, Pam Bondi in that other clip said there's over 250 victims.
Yeah. This here says the FBI has Jeffrey Epstein's little black book.
Yep.
And that Trump should release every name on it day one of his next administration.
Yep.
And Kash Patel's singing
FBI?
he's singing a different tune.
But to go back to Pam Bondi, 250 victims. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison right now for sex trafficking.
Right.
With no names. Who did she sex traffic to? What guys out there was she setting up and hooking up with her girls or whatever?
I guess she's about to get out, or unless she's going Epstein.
Is she
herself,
going free
too.
now? If there's no list? How did she get convicted if there's no list? I mean,
You asking the wrong person. I don't know.
This is he.
One of you guys know?
Epstein suicided. Remember, he got arrested in July for sex trafficking from 2002 to 2005.
Yeah.
For that very thing. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for that. Helping Epstein out. No list. How did she get... I don't have a question. I don't have an answer for that. So here is...
Go ahead. Go ahead. Pronounce it.
Sagir and Jetty. Sagir and Jetty. Talking with Tucker Carlson. He's a journalist that Tucker Carlson kind of interviewed on this. Go ahead.
The lie at this point is not even part of trying to convince any of this is true.
Yes.
The lie is a signal to everybody else involved in the scheme that to the ultimate ends, the United States government will go to protect all of you.
Yes.
And that's the for
Man,
what
is that smart.
purpose?
Can you say that again? Okay,
Yes.
so it's a signal.
The lie is not for you and me. The lie is for those implicated to say, no matter what, we will protect you. And then we have to start asking the question, why? As in, what is the purpose of this entire thing?
That's a good question.
I think our
That's a good
government does
question.
protect itself. I think it's no question. COVID was a great example of our government protecting itself. It kept its taxpayer money. In fact, it raised money on us. It got its stimulus money, and that enriched the government.
You even talk about 180s. And
They went to their wineries during COVID.
Yeah. No, I get it. Look, I'm not moved one way or another right now. This is...
I just can't get over how sickly Dan looked.
Well, yes. But here's Trump before all this came out, talking about kind of the whole situation.
You listen to CrossPolitic because you care about seeing Christ's lordship over every area of life, including the civil realm. But establishing righteous laws and a just society requires resources. That's where Dominion Wealth Strategist comes in. They're not just here to help you survive in a broken system. They're here to help you reform it. Dominion Wealth's mission is to equip Christians with financial strategies that align with biblical principles so that Christian wealth can be built, protected, and used in the furthering of God's kingdom. budgeting, saving, debt management, insurance, legacy planning, and more. Dominion Wealth is about giving Christians the tools to take the Dominion mandate seriously. The push to establish righteous laws doesn't just need voices, it requires money, resources, businesses, and families committed to active, multi-generational faithfulness and the empowering of individuals like you to give generously from a position of security and strength. Too many people are trying to pour from an empty cup, but Dominion will ensure yours runneth over. Christ will reign and every knee will bow. Let's prepare for that future together and build one of the means to make it happen. Book your free consultation today at www.reformed.money. From baptism to burial, Dominion's got you covered. So book your free consultation at www.reformed.money today. Business owners, your company struggling to grow? What if I told you that the right employee could grow your business by 5, 10, or even 25%? You'd be crazy not to take that deal, right? That's exactly what Red Balloon Recruiter offers. Our personalized source and screen process connects you with top talent, increasing revenue and reducing costs. So visit redballoon.work, that's redballoon.work today, and transform your hiring.
Okay. Let's just notice his tone.
People yesterday saying that I threw him out of a club. I didn't want anything to do with him. That was many, many years ago. It shows you one thing, that I have good taste, okay? Now, other people, they went all over with him. They went to his island. They went all over the place. He was very well known in Palm Beach. His island, whatever his island was, wherever it is, I was never there. Find out the people that went to the island. But Jeffrey Epstein was not somebody that I respected. I threw him out. In fact, I think the great James Patterson, who's a member of Mar-a-Lago, made a statement yesterday that many years ago I threw him out. I'm not a fan of Jeffrey Epstein.
That's good.
So this,
I wonder
why.
This
was the video. This interview or Trump's comments came out 2 days after July when Jeffrey was arrested in New York.
Okay.
So
all right,
that's the context of that.
Okay.
So here's Trump.
With all the stuff going on in the world, he thought it'd be good to maybe bring that topic up and to talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. The President of the United States.
Yeah. All right, and here's the President of the United States 2 days ago, I think.
Your memo and release yesterday with Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for an American or foreign intelligence agency. The former Labor Secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Costa, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of his death?
Yeah, sure. If I
Could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Now, there's a couple things here.
I'm so bummed that Trump took that
angle. Well, I think
angle.
because I think he should know.
It's very disappointing
that what we're asking is the government going to be ruled by a shadow organization, a deep state, or is the government that you run, Mr. President, going to be the kind that actually executes justice and punishes wicked doers? Yeah. Right, that's what's actually being asked, and the timing of this happens to be all this is going at the same time. Everything's always going on at the same time.
Right.
There's always something going on at the same time. So we're having to balance this in one way or another. But this is exactly what you've run on.
Yeah,
this isn't something void of what
the swamp.
Right. This is
the worst of the swamp. Some sex trafficker who will and the government's going to cover his behind from all the other politicians he served and worked with and hooked up on his island.
So I want to get into the possibly 4, but 3 things why this is important, but possibly 4. But I just want to go back for a moment. I just want to go back in time.
That's right.
And I just want to just play a clip from the show. We don't get a chance to play our own clips. I just want to play a little clip from the show. You asked, how stupid do they think we are? And I'm asking the question, how stupid do we think we are?
Yeah.
because we're not ever going to get this.
We're
you don't think we're ever going to get the full story?
We're not ever going to get. Listen to me. Did you read what Bondi said?
If they haven't already destroyed everything, they are really done.
If these have the names of the people who we really think are on here, and he was as powerful as they said he was.
I mean, why
he was the most prolific pedophile that has existed in
Prince
American
Andrew.
history.
Yeah.
Do you really think we're going to get all these names? No way.
I mean, I think they've gone into the same place where Hillary's emails went.
There's a couple things. One of the things that's really important to realize I've already thought through this, but one is this is way worse than we think.
Yeah.
This is far deeper than we think.
Yep.
It's broader than we think and has way more implications than we think. And Gabe, you asked a question, I believe, on that same show. And you've been asking the question since Trump got elected that if God actually started to show us our sins, if we would repent of them.
Yeah.
I think the question is being answered, no.
Oof.
We don't want to see it.
That's right.
This is crazy.
Yep.
Stuff
That's
is
right.
just disappearing. And guys, we really do, in a lot of ways, we trust the character of the people who are there. And their character is getting challenged to the point where they're bending.
Yeah.
Things are changing.
Yeah.
Nobody's given a very good explanation. And I'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
The second thing that I think is really important to talk about here is that this is a justice issue. And we talked about this with the, what's his name? The murder case, Kohlberger case.
Kohlberger.
Yeah. Unsolved murders.
There's blood in our land.
Yeah.
There are children and women that should not have been treated the way that Epstein treated them. And we're saying,
250 victims.
At
and
least.
We're saying,
and we're just, So we know that there were victims, right?
Yeah.
And so, and this goes to my third point. The third point is this. If they're victims, we don't need the list.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't need
That's
the
right.
files.
Yeah.
What we need is just a lawyer to go interview and get corroborating testimonies.
We don't need Epstein
to figure out who the perpetrators were who molested them.
Epstein's dead. We don't need him anymore.
He's done. We don't have to.
Let's go after the list.
So then why not take these 250 people?
That's right.
Sit down and talk with them like you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Ask them what happened, the story behind it, get witnesses, and identify the people who should be on trial. Where's the trial of the people who committed the acts? If there's pornography, child pornography out there, okay,
who did it?
Where exactly?
We got video evidence.
I would be happy at least with them saying, listen, the people who pushed this information out that Epstein downloaded it from, we have the IP addresses. We're going after them. We don't even want child pornography to exist in our nation. Yeah. And so we're going to prosecute those guys.
Yeah.
There is no justice anywhere happening in this particular case.
Yeah.
Why come listen, if this was take Epstein and put him over here, take Bondi, everybody out of the situation for a second and just say, okay, we have a crime and we have a victim. And the victim is telling us that this guy over there, Chad, is the one who molested them.
I think you got to assume, though, that you've got that.
Well, then it's worse. Then it goes back to point number one. It's
than
way worse than we think.
Why do you got to assume?
Well, I don't trust our ability to actually identify victims. Our justice is so screwed up.
It can't even define it.
You have to believe all women.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you remember? And it's like, well, I assume there really are victims. I presume that.
Yeah.
Well, he did something.
But remember, a whole bunch of people got paid and paid off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there were women, maybe of age, maybe underage, who were paid money and agreed to it, whether they were of age to make that agreement or not, legally.
But then, Pastor, the thing to do is to put them on trial like they did with Diddy. Mm-hmm. At least expose the reality of it.
Yeah.
If they can't get a conviction,
they didn't even expose.
Whoever the victims are saying that.
But they're not saying.
Well,
you got 250 victims.
The lawyer, Bondi's not saying.
But Pam Bondi, you can't believe her.
Can you believe Trump? Can you believe Trump?
So I have no idea the number. But okay, take it, 250. But where are they?
Yeah, that's a good question.
But they're not.
How Ghislaine Maxwell get in prison?
They're not talking. They're not.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been one of the biggest news stories of the last 6 years.
And you've had
7 years.
probably 3 or 4 victims go public, and one of them died within the last 6 months.
Okay.
So wait a second. So why wouldn't the federal government say, again, the DOJ, okay, we will protect you, right? Like, I guess
know.
no one will believe them because they can't protect Epstein.
I know.
So, but why not make that pitch? Why not say, listen, we've talked to the victims. We know these people are victims. We want to protect them, but they won't come out because this goes deeper than what they're not telling us the truth about the situation.
Yeah.
But my whole point is Pam knows that she doesn't need the files.
Probably these victims can't trust the FBI.
Right, I get that. But I mean, we can't even trust the new people that we put into the FBI to say what I just said.
Yep. That's exactly right.
So in one sense, it's just broken all the way around.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And part of, remember, justice, I mean, you're absolutely right. And if there was a victim that was willing to testify, we ought to do that. We ought to pursue the perpetrators. The other thing to remember is this is also, though, why, I mean, when this stuff gets drawn out like it does, I mean, in the Old Testament law, when a woman is being raped, she's required to cry out.
Yeah, that's right.
That means you're required to report it. Mm-hmm. Like you need to report when you've been. When
this happened.
This happened. And this is, you need to teach your kids this.
That's right.
That you need to tell an adult. You need to tell a law enforcement. You need to cry out. You need to call out. You need to report it, because if you don't report it, at some point, biblical law says you're complicit in it.
Yeah.
Right.
You went along with it, and obviously that has to be calibrated to age and ability to do that and so forth. And there's and that's why we have I think laws of consent are actually biblically rooted.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it, but even say, excuse me, but even say, hey, none of the victims want to speak out about this because they're afraid.
Yeah.
And that's a bigger problem for us.
Yeah.
Right. That says a whole lot about us.
Yeah. We can't protect our victims.
Because apparently you got Bill Clinton on the flight logs. You got, was it Patel or Dan Bongino mentioned that apparently there's some FBI people on the flight logs. There's the deep state is on that flight log. If all that is true.
I'm still going back, like Dan Bongino. I'm still stuck on
there's something there.
He's a Christian.
Yeah, he confesses to be.
I have every reason to believe that he's a born again Christian.
Yeah,
you can't go along with stuff, and the Holy Spirit be okay with that.
Yeah.
You think he's under conviction right now?
I don't know. I'm just saying.
It looks weird.
I'm just telling you. I wanted to see more of the video, and I'd love to see it. Maybe somebody can pull up the rest of that clip of that press conference. But I'm just saying, like that 10-second clip, he sounded weak. He sounded faint. He looked pale.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I'm not.
Could have been bad lighting.
Maybe it was bad lighting. Maybe he was he was getting over a cold. I mean, like, I'm willing to give him, benefit of the doubt there, but I'm just saying, like, given everything, I mean, you can't go along with a cover up, and it go well with you if you have the Holy Spirit inside you.
So, I agree with you on that.
We released a clip with you on our last conference. Was it the Ark Encounter conference? I can't remember what conference it was at where Toby was speaking.
I think it might have been at our first or second conference.
Okay, and you were talking about confessing sin.
Yeah, that was the first one.
And we have you talk about that every conference, basically.
That was the first
one. You were talking about confessing sin, but you were saying, like, people try to go to war with sin in their lives, and God doesn't grant that victory.
Right.
You have to get the sin out of your life,
right,
and God will grant the victory.
Yeah.
And you think of, this happened all the time with Israel. They had sin in the camp, and they tried it, and they're like, "We're going to war," and they go to war and they'd lose, and they'd come home, and then Achan or whatever, God would reveal the sin in the camp, and then they'd get it all right, and then they go back out to war, and God would grant them victory. And I think that's the state. If Trump is sincere about wanting to drain the swamp, if Pam Bondi's sincere, Dan Bongino, all these people are sincere about draining the swamp, we got sin in our camp.
Oh yeah,
and that's why God's not granting these victories with draining the swamp. And Epstein stuff, this is it's worse than you think. That's just the cherry on the top. I am convinced that one of the reasons why God's not blessing America is because the darkness in America is so great. It's all worse. Our sin is all worse than we think.
Well, we're all. I mean, at the top of the list. I mean, we have 65 million dead babies.
Yeah.
Their blood cries out.
I mean, we live like we live
in an enlightened country.
I mean, we live in that, like, the ruins of that. I mean, 65 million dead babies in the United States.
So what are they doing to the live ones?
Right. But yeah, what are they doing?
Yeah.
What are they doing with everything
They're
else?
not protecting any of them.
I mean, if you can pull apart baby bodies and chemically, just
tear them apart, sell their kidneys,
destroy them, and we have protected that, we have defended that, we have celebrated that as a country, and despite the sincere prayers and cries and efforts of many Christians,
that's right.
It is not. God has not yet seen fit to rid us of this plague.
Yeah.
Tome wins the toss, chooses to receive the Bible. Patterson back with the kick. Oh my goodness!
The American church is a mile wide and an inch deep. Bigger buildings, slicker productions. We've traded shepherds for CEOs and prophets for marketing experts.
How much money did you pay for Tyler Perry's Gulfstream jet, for example?
Well, for example, that's really none of your business.
The result? Cultural surrender dressed as relevance.
Then if people get mad, they get mad at Curtis, Russell, and David.
While our cities burn with paganism, we're busy building better light shows. While Rome burns and we fiddle Led Zeppelin covers. Our fathers built hospitals and universities. They transformed nations. We can't even transform our neighborhoods. Want real change? Build strong parishes. Start classical Christian schools. Feast together. Worship together. Build communities that last. Support churches that train up generations of culture shapers. Where psalms are sung, scripture is preached, and Christ's kingdom advances. Join the Reformation.
And Knox, you made the point earlier where it's like, we don't need Epstein. He's dead anyways.
Yep.
We don't even need the files. We can just go after the current people that are alive that were
what we
involved in
need.
this.
We have what we need to be able to run a valid case.
But I would even argue that if we got Achan out of the church, Joshua, the story of Achan in the church, Joshua found sin in his camp and Achan's family. And even if we get Achan out of the church, I think God would start granting the church major victory after victory here in America. And that we would really get right with the Lord and be able to expose all this darkness. That's the most healthy thing for our country right now is like, God, this goes back to the show we were commenting on. Like, God, just show us all our sin. Like, make us vomit from our sin into repentance.
Yes.
That's right.
There's my friend Chad Jackson. I'm not going to blow your whole film, but he's working on a new film right now. He's going to be releasing it this fall.
Okay.
And this film it's powerful. Chad is about to reframe our understanding of recent modern history, and I think it's gonna blow everybody away. I think it's gonna be probably, if not one of the most important films we'll watch in the last 10 years, especially documentaries. And what he's doing, I'm not gonna say everything, but what he's doing is dealing with the encroachment of Marxism and Marxism ideology. Yeah. And he starts in the beginning with Marx and Engels, but he contrasts it with Spurgeon because Engels' worst enemy was Charles Spurgeon because of how he preached the gospel, and the gospel preaching and the preaching from the pulpits influenced the hearts and minds of the people, so they didn't bite down on Marxism and the little game that it plays of you got this and partiality, right? And so they weren't able to get a foothold. So by the time they come over to America, they've already understood the most important move for them to do is to try and get within the church and to point out the discrepancies there and adjust what the gospel is so that they can actually control the rest of America. And lo and behold, it's worked. Right. And he made me think, and I sent him this text, it's funny, had we practiced biblical church discipline in the beginning with MLK's bad doctrinal teachings, and we practiced church discipline with a lot of other ministers at the time who were talking Marxist talk, America wouldn't even have the current situation that we have right now. But the church was such a central point of America that it was the first gate. The first crime scene was lost when preachers stopped preaching the gospel, stopped exercising church discipline. And because of that stuff crept in and started to form and adjust and change every dynamic of America. And so anyway, you just made me think about that.
Jesus said that, Jesus says that the church is the immune system.
That's right.
I mean, you are the light of the world.
Yeah.
If the light goes dark, everything in it goes dark.
Yeah.
You are the salt of the earth. You are the preservative.
Yeah.
And if the salt loses its savor, then the meat goes rot.
Yeah.
I mean, so we are the immune system.
City goes rot.
We are the immune system.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is opening too big of a can of worms, but I think in the aftermath of all this stuff happening this week, I read Eric Erickson's post on this, and I think it's just interesting. I mean, he's a Christian political commentator.
Yeah.
And his take is basically, look, guys, there's no cover up.
Mm-hmm.
There's no cover up. It's just as simple as a bunch of incompetence. Okay. So he starts off. Let me just read a couple of sections of this, just as a way to kind of push off from this other kind of, I don't know what you would call this, but like, I don't know, maybe more mainstream conservatism or whatever.
Okay.
He says this. He starts off with a little. The title is "Fire Pam Bondi." This is on his Substack, ewerickson.substack.com. All his life, a man had waited for the release of the Jeffrey Epstein list of clients. Then the Attorney General of the United States announced there was no list. Enraged at the deep state cover-up, his blood pressure climbing, he dropped dead of a heart attack. He arrived before the throne of God. God says, "Sir, you get to ask me one question before judgment." The man says, "God, please, I'm just so curious. Who all was on the Jeffrey Epstein list?" God replies, "There never was a list." "My God," the man yells exasperatedly. "I knew there was a conspiracy. I just never could have imagined it went all the way to the top." Okay. So, God is over. God's in on it too. The deep state goes all the way up.
Yeah.
He says before moving on into the FBI, Cash Patel, Dan Bongino insisted that before moving into the FBI, Cash Patel, Dan Bongino insisted the FBI and the deep state were protecting Jeffrey Epstein, but many of the victims' lawyers and several investigative journalists said that was not so. There was never a list, a detailed flight manifest, or many of the other things that supposedly existed. Many people believe a lot about the Epstein story because they followed people online who treated speculation and rumor as fact. Patel and Bongino seemingly did so too. Then they took office. Once in the FBI, once they could dig around and see for themselves what was so and what was not, they did something we should appreciate. They examined the firsthand evidence and they changed their minds and then said so. Regardless of your opinions of the men, we should appreciate their willingness to assess the information, change their minds instead of railing on deep state conspiracies outside their hands and over their heads. And then he goes on to contrast that with Pam Bondi, who he notes just did this complete flip.
180.
It's on my desk right now to, I don't know what you're talking about. There's no list. She lied. She says she should be fired. But he goes on to say there's no list. There's no detailed travel manifest beyond what we have.
But that's just not a lot of people online who are just making
he says,
unclaimed statements. Fair enough.
What is?
Pam Bondi.
Wait, I'm sorry.
No, so if he's saying that people got all stirred up because of other folks they heard online making unclaimed statements, Pam Bondi's not a person just online making unclaimed statements.
Right. So,
she straight flipped.
That's why he's saying she should be fired, not Dan Bongino.
Yeah, that's why he's saying she should be fired.
Not Cash Patel.
To be sure, he goes on, investigative journalists have found about 80 victims. So this is what he says. 80. They were not all for Jeffrey Epstein, but a lot of them were. Many of the victims were well paid by the men who abused them and signed non-disclosure agreements. You will not get the names you want. In many cases, the men you think were monsters were men cultivated by Jeffrey Epstein for his image and reputation to ingratiate himself with others to build up his personal wealth. Undoubtedly, some of the men were monsters, but you'll probably never know which ones. Hell exists for a reason, including for those who escape justice in this world. That's true. The grand, deep, and global conspiracy makes some people sleep better at night because it's better to believe there's a puppet master pulling strings and a plan to control the monsters than to know evil marches about the land, often on its own whims with no coordinator or master plan. People sleep better believing in understandable plots because those plots mean someone is in control. They'd be terrified to know there's no plot, just random monsters connected through Epstein to victims, monsters you will never know. He goes on and says Pam Bondi ought to be fired. He says there were at least 80 victims, according to several investigative reporters. Many of those young ladies were well paid by the monsters who abused them and will never talk. The government of the United that's the point, he says.
Yeah.
The government of the United States did not conduct a competent investigation, so there was never a list that Epstein kept, but a proper investigation could have built up a dossier of abusers. So the problem is our government across presidential administrations simply was not competent. Some will instead believe there was a great cover-up because they cannot fathom the level of incompetence. Like believing there must be an evil cabal pulling strings instead of unchecked evil, some people would rather believe in a massive government cover-up than realize how incompetent our government has become. They can sleep well at night believing in competent sinister forces rather than rank incompetence. You'll never know the names of the men or most of the victims. A lot of the men will burn in hell after using their resources to escape justice in this lifetime. Hell should give you comfort. Also, much of what you think you know came from rumors and speculation that was treated as fact. One angry lady on social media yelling at me about all this insisted there were thousands of monsters. No one who has ever investigated this case came to that conclusion. Only internet gossips did.
Unless he said the investigation was incompetence. Why is he referencing the investigation there?
Unless the victims come forward, to your point, Knox, and defy their non-disclosure agreements, justice will be served before an angry God, not before you or the courts. Lastly, a lot of people are emotionally invested in this because of the titillating nature of it, not because they actually want justice for the victims. They want the spectacle and entertainment, and now won't get the perp walks of the rich and the famous they desire. Last note, he says, side note, there's a weird overlap between people who are convinced there's a massive Epstein conspiracy and people who also defend Andrew Tate.
That's great.
I don't fit in that category.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. But he's not wrong.
Well, I mean, but okay, so just first of all, I'm not thinking of a conspiracy necessarily, but I'm thinking of people like Cash and Dan, who I've trusted, and I've trusted since COVID. Right. So this is not a situation that's come out of nowhere.
Right.
This is not a train of thought that's developed just in thin air. We have a history since before COVID, JFK files, MLK files, that tells us how our government likes to operate. And so I'm not thinking of one, I'm thinking of a larger context here. Yep. And from guys who I know.
We got COVID.
I was just about to make the point. Don't tell me about conspiracies. I just went through one 5 years ago.
A real one.
A real one that everybody looked at us and said the exact same thing he just said right there.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not buying it.
It wasn't incompetence. COVID was not incompetence.
Well, no.
It was mixed.
No, it was mixed.
Yeah, sure.
It was mixed.
There was a lot of incompetence. There was a lot of fear.
Yeah.
And there were.
But it wasn't incompetence from the government.
But the thing that really bothered me about COVID, that bothered me about COVID was the fact that they told you just believe it.
Right. Right.
They never validated in the information, like we're getting from Bondi, like we're getting from Trump, like we're getting from Patel, and like we're getting from Dan. They validate the information. Why didn't they mention any of that information that he's talking about here? Was this not valid information? Why is it 250 versus 80?
Yeah.
Somebody make it make sense. Listen, nobody wants to believe less into the shadow government and the deep state than me. I don't like that idea.
Yeah.
But I look at this and I'm saying, if COVID is any example of how we like to operate, can we what are we ever going to go to Fort Knox?
Yeah. No,
are we going to open up the doors of Fort Knox and see if the gold's there? Are we going to find out about the assassination attempt with Trump? I have a long list.
That's right.
Do those next, okay, Eric? No, so I'm fine with that. But here's so I get it, and I love the balance that he's bringing to this because I think there are some people that are on the complete other side of this.
Right.
So that said, I still think that. So I went through the three things. I had one more I want to go through.
Yes.
Unless you want to jump to anything else with Eric.
No.
The fourth thing I think is really important is that Trump is a mastermind in strategy. And so when you see this, whatever the situation is, true or false, or what's going on with the Epstein thing, the way that Trump plays the game is he uses certain forms of attention to make you look one way while something else is going on.
Okay.
And I want to make this case from what happened to Megyn Kelly. Remember their whole spat, Trump and Megyn Kelly, that whole thing that happened with them at the debate?
Yeah.
And then she gets to go up to Trump Towers and talk to him. And this is the fallout from that.
I walked out. We agreed, like, we're good. And the last thing he said to me before I walked out of Trump Tower was, you know, Megyn, it's not such a good thing if they're not talking about us. And I was like, oh my God, was this whole thing for show? Like, was he acting the whole time?
Wow.
To generate buzz?
So in one sense, like, this is how Trump operates. He knows what he's doing. So whatever you want to think about the Epstein files, wherever you think they are, Trump is actively using this moment to generate attention. He knows that everybody's going to jump on this. They know that. They know this is going to be a big deal. Whatever you think about it, and everybody's going to be talking about it, including us. My only question comes in is, well, what else is going on the other side where we're not paying attention to something or we're not looking at something else because all of our attention is around the Epstein files and them lying about that or not lying about that? Or everybody, it generates the right attention to make everybody look one direction. And when everybody starts looking one direction, I start saying, wait a second, what's going on over here? This is called the bump and rob you kind of setup. Have you ever heard about that? I talked about it before. There's a setup where they will bump your car. You're driving your vehicle. They will bump your vehicle. You will stop, get out your vehicle. Another person from that car that bumped you will jump into the driver's seat and drive off while you get out and start looking and both cars are gone and you're sitting there by yourself. That's what this feels like right now. Yeah. Whatever the situation is, this feels like, why don't everybody look over here? And why don't we make everybody look over here? Mm-hmm. And so whatever the case is, this is definitely an attention grab.
Yeah. I think your point, Gabe, is still, really well stated. I mean, I think we can't, we are in a deep, dark place.
Yeah.
And if we are not repenting, if we are not getting clean, this is, this goes back to, Trump can't save us. Like, it's only Christ is going to save us. Only repentance in Christ is going to save us. That's the only thing that's going to save this country. And it's, you can't get the right person elected. You can't get the right person in power. It's like, it's Christ or chaos. And I think that's being underlined here as well.
Gabe, I know you got to run, but I just want to say this before we go. The kind of change that we need is going to have to come from what we do in our homes every day.
That's right.
And I've talked about Hannah before and that whole situation. She wanted a child and she gave it to the Lord so that the priesthood would be right, so that the nation would be saved. Everything that was happening in Israel was a problem because of what was happening at the priesthood. They lost the ark. They couldn't win any battles. And that was a generational process. You have Hannah, who has a child, gives him to the Lord. He becomes a prophet. He anoints David. David brings us Solomon. And we have some of the best time in our era of rulership in a nation because the priesthood was made right. If we want that kind of priesthood made right, we're going to have to do that with our own kids. Give them to the Lord, train them up in the fear and admonition, and come to the conference.
FightLaughFeast.com. School Wars. Rebuilding Christendom.
With your kids. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast like Gabe just did. This is CrossPolitic.